Welcome back from break 6th grade. Today we are going to be starting with fractions. So we're going to start with a little bit of vocabulary, what are fractions and some of the common terms that go with them. So our first word is fraction. A fraction is a symbol such as 1/3 used to describe one or more parts of a whole that is divided into equal parts. So to draw a picture or do an example, we will just write a couple example of fractions. So I have 2/3, maybe 16 50/3, and let's say 3/5. If you want to put one or two extras down there, that's fine with me. Those are just some examples to put in there. The second term that we have is simplest form. A fraction in which the greatest common factor of the numerator and the denominator is 1. So if I'm writing something in simplest forms, that means that I cannot make it any smaller. So 2 1/3, 6/7, 3/4, 1 1/2. We will be working with simplest form a little bit more tomorrow, so we will definitely get to explaining that a little bit better. All right, so you've probably seen the word numerator up on that last definition. The numerator is the number above the fraction bar. So when I'm talking about a numerator, if I have the fraction 1/2, my numerator is right here. It's this number right up on top. So I just drew one big fraction and drew an arrow showing you it's the top number. So then that would bring us down to our denominator, which is the number on the bottom of the fraction. So I'm just going to do this. So I'll give you a second to get that down. And we have our numerator and our denominator. Okay, I'm going to slide my paper up. Next, we're going on to common denominator, and you should know what a common denominator is from when you were adding and subtracting fractions, because you needed to find a common denominator in order to add or subtract your fractions. So a common denominator is a number that is in the denominator of more than one fraction. So if I would say 3/4 times 1/4, this here is my common denominator. Because they match, the 4s match. So I'm just going to circle those so that you know exactly what I'm talking about. We're just talking about those 4s on the bottom. The next one is improper fractions, and we'll be working on that later on this week. An improper fraction is a fraction whose numerator, so the top number, is greater than or equal to its denominator. So an example of that might be 35/5, 28/10, 75/75, or maybe even 1/1. So those are called improper fractions. All right. You should have had time to get those down. If you want to put extra examples in there, you may do so. We're going to go on to page B. And we're going to talk a little bit about a mixed number. Again, we're going to get to these at the end of this week. It's a number that has a whole number part and a fraction part. So 2 3/4, 16 2/3, 3 1/2. Feel free to write down another example if you would like to. All right, a common factor is a number that is a factor of two numbers. And we are going to be using common factors when we're simplifying our fractions. So maybe I have 14/20 written here. Okay? Some common factors of 14/20. I can say to get to 14, I can say 2 times 7. To get to 20, I might have 2 times 2 times 5. So right here, those 2's are my common factor. So 2 is a common factor of 14 and 20. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about common factors as time goes on. Okay. Greatest common factor is the same thing, but it's just the biggest factor. So if I give you 4/24, I can say 2 times 2 I can also say 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, because 4 times 6 is 24. And 2 is a factor, and another set of 2's. So I can say 2 is a common factor of 4 and 24, but 4 is the greatest common factor of 4 and 24. And again, these are things that you should have done last year in 5th grade when you started doing fractions. This is just a little review. Equivalent fractions. 2 fractions that are equal or share the same value. So if I wrote down the fraction 1/2, another fraction that equals 1/2 could be 2/4, 3/6, 50/100. And I can get those by saying 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. To get 3/6, 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6. Can you write down a couple equivalent fractions for 1/4? Some of you may have gotten 2/8. You may have gotten 3/12. You may have even gotten 25/100. There are so many more. If teachers want to check your answers and you want to share if you have different answers than I do, that's fine. And our final vocabulary word for today is reciprocal. And we're going to use that in about 2 weeks when we start dividing fractions. This week we're going to just talk about simplifying and mixed numbers. And then next week we're going to do a little bit of multiplication, and then we're going to move into dividing. Reciprocal is just when I call it, you just kind of flip over the fraction. So if I have a fraction 2/3 and I want to take the reciprocal, I'm going to put the bottom number on the top and the top number on the bottom. The reciprocal is just switching the order of the fraction. So try it with 8/9. What is the reciprocal of 8/9? You got it. It's 9/8. And let's try one more. Let's try the reciprocal of 1/4. What is the reciprocal of 1/4? Yes, 4/1. All right. That is our vocabulary lesson for today. And I know I went a little fast. However, we will talk about these vocabulary as we go through the different areas. Right now, you will have some homework to do. And it is pages 1 and 2. The first one is simply writing what fractions are. The second one is writing equivalent fractions. On the top of the worksheets, there are some explanation on there, and I will leave you with that.